A stroll through the neighborhood leads to the discovery of a stone that's part of history. It's a story of one man caught in two worlds pursuing peace and prosperity. There are a lot of unanswered questions about this man and his motives. One woman spends years investigating simply because she wants to know the backstory. Skyscrapers supplant the hunting trails and battlegrounds of the early 19th century.
Chicago was an important point in terms of it moving westward and expanding westward.
Every city proudly displays historical markers and statues here and there, but not as much at the edge of the urban landscape. Amidst the shady streets, near a fire hydrant and stop sign, a simple stone reveals a story that catches the eye of Susan Kelsey as she walks through Chicago's Sauganash neighborhood, as in Chief Sauganash. This land was once his, as part of a treaty that also gave 5 million acres to the U.S. government.
That really was the end of the chapter, what was known as Indian country.
Out of sheer curiosity, Susan follows the trail of Chief Sauganash, also known as Billy Caldwell, that name you see on the street sign. She discovers a backstory of betrayal and survival.
This was a medallion on one of the Gun Lake veterans.
Sharon Hoogstraten reveals tribal regalia.
And these are old traditional patterns.
She published a book of photographs of different regalia. They're not costumes. Costumes are what you wear when it's something you're not. Regalia is a celebration of one's heritage, and Sharon is a descendant of a tribal chief.
It's never finished. Your story is always evolving, and your regalia is always evolving.
For this story, we'll begin with the War of 1812. America is at war with the British again, and white settlers are pushing west, invading the lands of native tribes. These forces of history clash at Fort Dearborn. In just 15 minutes, 500 Potawatomi killed dozens of soldiers and other settlers, and then burned the fort to the ground. There's a monument there now on the Michigan Avenue Bridge depicting the battle. It includes Sharon's ancestor.
He was the only chief to die in the Battle of Fort Dearborn. Every time I walk by, I reach up and pat the monument.
As a descendant of the chief, the plight of Native Americans is personal.
It gives you a lot of incentive to remember the hardship that your ancestors went through. You don't want their troubles to be forgotten.
In the middle of all these troubles is Billy Caldwell. Born around Niagara Falls to a Mohawk mother and an Irish father fighting for the British, Billy Caldwell has a foot in two worlds, as depicted in this artist's painting.
He, I believe, went back and forth, and I think that's what made him a good negotiator, because he could kind of move in both those worlds.
They recognized that they were sovereign nations.
Joseph Rupnick is the chairman of the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation. His grandfather's grandfather is Chief Chabanais. His people see nature, gardens, hunting grounds. White settlers see real estate.
Everything that we had fought for, everything that we held dear was taken away from us.
The tribes recognize diplomacy may be the best tactic to survive as settlers move in.
They were trapping out all the animals, they were taking all the fish. We only believed in taking what was actually needed and not depleting all the resources.
It's not that Native Americans are helpless.
Disease had the biggest impact. They didn't have the immunity, and so it had essentially wiped out whole tribal communities.
Kim Viju is executive director of the Mitchell Museum of the American Indian.
There was and still is, like a very different concept of ownership and land, and so that was seen as something very communal and shared. When Europeans came, it was the complete opposite, like you take what you can and you exploit it.
Caldwell signs the 1833 Treaty of Chicago. which cedes 5 million acres of land in the Midwest to the U.S. government for cash and land west of the Mississippi. Caldwell receives land, including what is now the Sauganash neighborhood. Some consider him a traitor. Viju says that characterization is unfair.
The decisions that he had to make in order to keep his family alive, his community alive, it was really like a life or death decision.
Chief Chabanais also receives land in northern Illinois, but while he's away at a tribal council in 1850, settlers move in.
My great-grandmother and my grandmother made many trips up here in the 60s, trying to get people to recognize the injustice.
In recent years, the tribe purchased 130 acres in the area, but that's only 10% of their original land. Part of the land is now a state park. The Potawatomi Nation is lobbying Illinois to return it, 1,500 acres.
This is something that our family has been fighting for almost 200 years. I thought that I'm never going to be alive to be able to see this.
In the end, perhaps Billy Caldwell's strategy was right all along.
Everything that our ancestors fought for has finally come to light.
Indigenous peoples say they hope someday the U.S. government will issue a formal apology. In the meantime, they encourage people to learn history from the Native Americans' perspective.
The victor is the one that gets to write history. Now, folks are really starting to realize and understand the injustice that was done, the genocide that was done, and now there are folks that are actively taking steps to correct that.
Today I'm painting 3 Ojibwe dancers, which is the dance of my people.
The history books we grew up reading in school were not written by Native Americans. Now, Indigenous people like Leanna Asher are telling their own stories.
Some people don't necessarily care about their ancestry or whatever. Why do you?
My grandparents and my parents, till 1978, you couldn't practice dancing. You couldn't, so they did. They, underground on the reservation, they practice it and they hid it away, and I feel like I'm this next generation and I'm going to proudly show what they couldn't show.
Billy Caldwell, a man who understands both worlds. Pavement and steel erased the tribal villages, but their descendants, including the Potawatomi, are still here, telling their story.